This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Greeny. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast, where we have for you today everything All-Star Weekend, including the dunks, the celebrity game, and the game itself. But will any of that matter up against Saturday Night Live? Friday, we went around the league with Commissioner Silver. Today, the executive director of the NBA Players Association, Michele Roberts, got her chance to respond. Plus, Shannon Sharpe on Melo's decision and the future of Peyton Manning, and why Julian Edelman won't discuss his injury in the Super Bowl.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Good morning. We are back and better than ever. Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio, live on TV on ESPN2. Happy President's Day. Mm-hmm. Happy birthday, George and Abe and all the others.
I can't remember the point in my life that there was a point where I thought, you know what, I'm not going to be the President of the United States.
You know, the sad truth is, I think there was a point in both of our lives where we realized you would rather not be the president of the United States. We're the last generation of American kids who grew up thinking that being the president of the United States would be a great job.
Was a cool thing, exactly right.
As opposed to now when it doesn't seem so. Anyway, presented by Progressive Insurance, guest on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Hope everybody had a wonderful All-Star weekend. I wonder if anybody watched. That's going to be the interesting question with that Saturday Night Live thing last night. That was spectacular.
Unbelievable.
That obviously I'm sure is going to obliterate everybody in the ratings. I wonder, just how many people watched the All-Star game last night. The All-Star weekend festivities, we were there Friday night together. Yes. I went back Saturday with my family in Brooklyn, and we had a terrific time. That event in the building is phenomenal. I don't know that TV can do justice, the energy in a building that you get for the rest of it. And then the game last night was the game last night. They shot up 113 threes. And, the final score was whatever the final score was, and Westbrook gets the MVP. So, it was your typical All-Star night. The teams combined for 330 points between them, and away we go. How many threes did they take last night?
No, it was wrong. How about this? Exactly half the shots were threes. There were 266 shots in the game. And 133,
right?
133 of them
threes.
Were threes. It was. Listen, I've always said this about the game, and I'm not going to lie. I didn't watch a ton of the game. I watched some of it. I watched Saturday Night Live. I watched the 40th anniversary of that because I've said it before. NBA All-Star Weekend is the best weekend of all the sports, but the low point to me is the game. The game, for the times that you turn it on, you just see threes, no defense, which I'm not complaining about it.
Alley-oops, the occasional alley-oop.
I'm not complaining about it. It's cool. That's the way they want to play it. And I know you're not going to play it any harder than that. So I'm not saying it in a derogatory way. I'm just saying it from an entertainment standpoint. The Friday night between our Celebrity All-Star Game and the Rookies versus the World. The Saturday night, which we're going to get into, which thank you, Zach LaVine, we're going to talk a lot about for CPRing on the dunk contest and bringing that back. And to me, the game itself is kind of anticlimactic. I would imagine unless you're in the stands, unless you're in the building, I would imagine it has to be pretty hype with all those stars in there. So to me, the real part of the NBA weekend, is the Friday, is the Saturday. If you asked Russell Westbrook, one of the first things he brought up, he was your MVP yesterday, but the weekend he had that he brought up, that's Fashion Week. And he was the first guy we had talked to there, and we taped some of our interviews talking about he brought 7 or 8 outfits, and he's really into the fashion. So he brought up Fashion Week and all the other things you can do in New York as well. So as a whole, I absolutely think it's the best All-Star weekend out there. Just to me, the thing I like least is the thing that is last, and it was a game last night.
Well, I can tell you just quickly on that SNL thing. I did, as for my book tour, I did an interview on the Meredith Vieira show on Friday afternoon,
right,
which is at 30 Rock. Ray Netchi, our producer, came with me, and her studio, I didn't know this until we got there, is adjacent to Jimmy Fallon's studio, where he does the Tonight Show. So, the energy outside of that room is unreal, ridiculous. And as we're exiting the building, we do our interview, then we're leaving to go down and do our game at the Garden.
Right.
And as we're exiting, Steve Martin is walking into the building. So you got a sense that even just at that moment, I looked at Ray, I was like, that was Steve Martin who just walked right past us wearing a hat and sunglasses. But I recognized him immediately. So that was an amazing thing last night. They did an unreal job with that.
Unbelievable. They had a red carpet event first, and then they had the actual show. Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake kind of song and danced through a lot of the highlights through the years and such. And then it was just star after star after star. Greeny, I actually threw out on Twitter at one point, I said, what in that time frame, what major star, forget comedian or musician, that if you were big, you were on that show. But then you get into like actors who made appearances. I said, who wasn't? Who didn't make an appearance on that show? But there were good news skits. Some of the best part we'll get into with some of the old skits. I think some of the funniest stuff was the stars, the huge stars, doing their tryout tape. What is it? Their audition tapes. Their audition when they looked like they were about 10 years old. Their actual audition tapes for Saturday Night Live. It was fantastic. And I mean, you want to talk right up our area. It's a
cultural touchstone.
Yeah, it really is.
There are a few things that have lasted as long as that has and remained relevant in the way that has, and it has. So it is a sort of a touchstone to different generations. Yeah. I think it was something for everyone last night, regardless of how old you are. Because if you're like us and you're old enough to basically remember the beginning, I don't remember the very beginning.
I was 13 years old, so I'm right in that teenager where you can stay up maybe a little later at times, and you could see. So I was 13, 1975 when that thing kicked off, and so I've been in it the whole time.
But so through all of that, but then obviously for our purposes here on Mike and Mike to the All-Star Game we go. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. They'll compare rates for you to get the best deal, even if it's not with Progressive, saving you time and money. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today. There was a whole lot of this.
15 to shoot outside to Russell Westbrook. He'll take it, fire from the hash mark, and knocked it down. He can do that with proficiency.
He didn't go with the pistols. Usually he likes to blow on the fingertips as if they're pistols after he makes a three.
He was kind of shimmied his shoulders. Now he'll trigger another one and hit another one from the opposite hash mark, and then marches down the floor like a toy robot.
He's got 18 points in over 6 minutes played.
That's Russell Westbrook, who scored 41 points last night, one shy of tying Wilt Chamberlain's all-time record, which was set in 1962. He scored 27 points in the first half on his way to being the MVP as the West beats the East in the NBA's All-Star Game. The call right here on ESPN.
That
Radio.
was a record. The 27 in the first half actually was a record as he fell 1 point short, as you said. And LeBron is what still behind Kobe as far as total points scored. LeBron had 30. This is one of those probably the winning side. He would have been the MVP. He had 30 for the East. And if the East had won, he may have been the MVP, but it was Russell Westbrook. Now, he took the most shots of anybody. He took 28, and then LeBron took 21. And Carmelo, as I had talked about for New York, he took 20 shots, and were those the last 20 shots of his season. Only made 6. Not a great shooting night for him, but he wanted to be there as a host, and we talked a lot about that. So we'll see if he shuts it down for the season. As I said, he took third most shots and 20 shots. I thought a great moment with Paul Gasol and Marc Gasol. When they do the introductions, when they bring one out from each team, and they brought those out together, it was such a nice emotional moment for them. I thought was really cool.
Well, look, there are very few people walking planet Earth who have the perspective on that you do, which is to say that you and your brother both played in the NFL at the same time. It isn't exactly the same as two, basketball players who are going head to head. But I mean, the reality is there are two brothers tipping off against each other to start an All-Star game.
Incredible.
Absolutely incredible.
When my brother and I did it, when I joined the league with the Houston Oilers, back when, Tennessee Titans, when there were the Houston Oilers, it was in the same division, as Cleveland, so we played them twice a year. And then my brother Bob was on Cleveland at that point when I got into the league, so we see each other twice a year. And I guess when you're playing, when you're in it, you've made it to the level and you're in it, I guess the shame of it is, you don't stop and appreciate it enough of the fact that here's two guys from the same household in playing at the top level of their sport, and these guys really at the top level. They're both two of the best players in the game, and to be able to watch that, it was really, really cool.
Well, I mean, if you think about the things that would be on that kind of a level that we've seen, let's say things that would supersede that. Venus and Serena Williams have faced off in the finals of Grand Slams.
Right.
What could be bigger than that?
Right.
Jim and John Harbaugh coached against each other as head coaches in a Super Bowl. What could be bigger than that? Those would be bigger than that.
You know what?
If Peyton and Eli ever played each other in a Super Bowl,
And you know what? These two could. It would not be out of the realm that Memphis plays Chicago.
It could happen this year.
And that's what I mean. In the NBA
and there'll be a lot less hugging and kissing before it started.
Then it could be up to 7 games of battling one another, where a little more of the Super Bowl is one game, or, you have the match of the finals of the majors there, or the Grand Slam events. That would be something. That would be very interesting. But I thought that was a very, very cool moment.
Absolutely. Then working our way backwards through All-Star Weekend. Because Sunday night was what Sunday night was. Saturday night I was in the building for this.
Here's the bounce. Goes between the legs, scissors the legs, and stuffs it with the right hand. That was filthy.
All right, so what Zach Levine did, I hope it translated on television as well as it did in the building.
It did, because you were in the building. I was at home at that point, or saw it on television. Yeah, it did.
Oh, my God. I got to tell you, we talked a lot Thursday and Friday about how whether the All-Star, the Slam Dunk contest needs to be replaced. We talked to the commissioner about it. It was a big part of our conversation. And I don't take back a word of it, because that is what I was thinking at the time. And then single-handedly or single-fistedly,
Zach Levine on the near side will throw it ahead, get the lob on the counter, behind the back and throws it. A whiplash right-hand jam. Zach Levine has done it again on his first attempt. Wow! This kid was born for this competition. What a move that was. He went around the world with a left to the right hand and then snapped it in there.
I got to tell you, that was among the great Slam Dunk contest performances of all time.
Because it wasn't a contest.
No, right. No, but him, just him, his performance. And there are a couple of things that made it so. One is he didn't miss.
No, exactly.
So, like, the first Victor Oladipo dunk is a great dunk, but he completed it on his 3rd attempt. Yeah. So by that time, you'd seen what he was trying to do.
It was a little anticlimactic. Yes.
It wasn't a little anticlimactic. It was extremely anticlimactic. And the place is kind of clapping for him, trying to get him to do it, which is almost condescending in the first place.
Come on, you can do it.
Then Zach Levine goes out there. He brings out these, 2 guys that are kind of rapping in front of him. They almost turned the crowd off. The crowd was almost kind of like, come on, get to it already. What is this? And then, boom. And that building went completely crazy. And I will answer the question that many people are asking me on Twitter. Yes, the little blonde kid who went nuts on TNT, that is my son, Stephen. They cut to him. I have no idea why. I don't know why it is they chose him out of thousands of people. Yeah. There he is on TV. That's my son, Stevie. But my point is, I don't know how they knew he was going to do that. But he was, that sort of sums up what everyone in the crowd was thinking.
They were just looking at reactions, I'm sure, and saw he had a great reaction and put the camera on him. Because
how does that work? How quickly can you get a camera on a person like that? I guess I would wonder. Because just for Stace and me and for him and for everybody, we didn't know what had happened.
Right.
So I'm sitting in the arena. I didn't know Stevie was on TV.
No, you wouldn't know that.
We're watching it like everybody else. And then when we leave and we get into the car to come back from Brooklyn, my phone had exploded. Yeah. And I went to see, people that I know recognized him. And then I wondered, I wonder if anyone else. Then I go to my Twitter, and the mentions, I've got 8,000 people saying, was that Stevie, was that Stevie? So, whatever. That personally was fun.
That's cool.
That was just for us. Taking that aside, Zach Levine single-handedly resuscitated that contest.
Without doubt. And all the things you mentioned are true, or make it that much better is the fact that he wasn't missing them. And it became like, okay, come on, okay. Now, as you said, we see what you want to do. Now we hope you can make it. The question was, how could he not get a 50 every time? Who was it? Was it Nate Robinson the one time that gave him the 9? Anthony Anderson, who was doing the emceeing for it, even jumped on him a little bit, said he was hating. I think it was.
I don't think it was Nate Robinson.
Oh, no,
was Nate there? I was watching from where I was watching.
Was it not?
It was Clyde Frazier. It was Julius Erving. It was Tiny Archibald.
Or maybe it was Tiny. Maybe it was Tiny. It might have been Tiny, but Anthony was jumping on somebody for giving him a 9. But
I couldn't hear everything that was being said. I didn't even pay attention to the judging.
We got the whole product because I was watching it on TV. So Anthony Anderson was kind of doing the going to the judges and doing that. So that's the part of it we got. But it was. Well, when you get a performance like that,
he brought it back. He single-handedly brought that thing back because now I want to see it again next year, and you want to see if anyone can challenge him. He has actually by himself made that event must-see TV.
Oh, by the way, he's 19 years old, and he actually said he thinks he could beat LeBron. LeBron commented about the the dunk contest and said he does have some regrets that he never did it. He said he's past the point now of going in it. He said basically he's too old to do it now, but he said he does regret not going in it when he was younger. And Zach LaVine said he thinks he could beat LeBron James in a dunk contest. And right now, I think he's absolutely right.
And right there lies the reason why there's no upside for LeBron being in the dunk contest. Because if you're LeBron and you're in the dunk contest and you win, well, then you were supposed to win.
Right.
And if you lose to Zach LaVine, who's a kid who, let's face it, how many people in America knew who Zach LaVine was at 8:30 on Saturday night? And there's a kid on the Minnesota Timberwolves who can just jump out of the gym. I mean, his head, forget the rim, his head almost hit the ceiling.
It was just unbelievable.
But he was absolutely spectacular. And he, again, now not only did he bring it back for that night, but I think he brings it back for next year, because now you want to see if anyone can take a shot at him.
Yeah.
He's got to come back and defend the crown, and you got to see if anyone can take a shot at him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Who will want to try and take a shot at him? And I still think it's a shame that some of the stars, the mega stars, don't want to do it. And I do think part of it is they don't want to lose. I wish they'd get over that and come and do it for the show, even if LeBron was in that and lost it. Still, it's not like today we're saying, oh, wow, LeBron, wow, his skills have eroded.
No, but what we're saying is, how about this young kid who took out LeBron?
Seriously?
Well, if you're LeBron, you don't need that.
Really?
Why do you need that?
So, I mean, for the entertainment value, for the fact that
he's not being entertained by it.
Well, as he said, he regrets not doing it.
It's easy to say now that you've not done it. Yeah. I regret not doing a lot of things in my life.
I hate that attitude. You know what? There were plenty of stars that had gone in, and I hate the attitude that if in fact it's true that they sit there and don't want to lose it, I think that's ridiculous.
Legler is now saying that LaVine may have scared people away.
Picking Zach LaVine to win it was the equivalent of a breakaway layup. I wasn't going to dunk it, so that's why I said for me it would be a breakaway layup, because I was as sure of Zach LaVine winning that contest as I have been at predicting anything since I've been at ESPN, based on what I have seen him already do. And I think he did resurrect it, at least for a night. What remains to be seen is he going to continue to do it? Is he going to stay in it for a long time? Will he encourage other guys to do it? Chauncey made a great point. We were talking earlier. You said he might have scared other guys off from doing it because of the display that he put on. One of the things I loved about it, no props. He wasn't jumping over cars or human beings or bringing stuff out. It just was one guy jumping basketball, old school style.
He did. He took the ball out of a teammate's hand one time. Another one threw it off the stanchion one time, and he took the bounce off of that. So it wasn't. There wasn't a lot of props involved. Just eye-opening, unbelievable dunking. And you're right. I mean, wasn't he? So Plumlee is in it. Oladipo's in it. The Greek Freak is in it. But I heard anybody, as you said, people watching didn't know who he was, but anybody in basketball knew these guys and all said LaVine is going to win this thing. They said this guy is unbelievable. Some were saying maybe the Greek Freak would.
The Greek Freak, it would have been, had the ball actually gone in, it would have helped him a little bit.
Certainly helps, when you're
Mason Plumlee. I mean, it was just.
There was no contest.
It started with the thud to end all thuds. Plumlee awful. Yeah. The Greek Freak can't get the ball to go in. Oladipo came out, and again, it was a great. First of all, he comes out singing New York, New York, which I liked. But whatever. And then the dunk, had it gone in, would have been unbelievable. But he misses twice before making the third one, which takes a lot of the fun out of it.
And LaVine, it's over.
And now you're thinking, well, this, here he goes. Slam dunk contest.
This is
no
why
good.
We keep talking about, should they go to something else? And then LaVine said, okay, this is why you keep the slam dunk
contest. He blew the roof off the building.
Incredible.
He was absolutely fabulous. So that brought it back. Steph Curry was unreal in the three-point shooting. The three-point shooting contest is my favorite thing of the night. That was great. He was great. Kyrie Irving was great. Klay Thompson in the first round was great. I mean, they knocked out some guys who had some good scores.
They sure did.
In that first round.
They did.
So the three-point shooting contest remains, I think, a really fun event to watch. So it was a good All-Star Saturday night, and then you and I had our fun on Friday night. Mm-hmm. No question about it, coaching against each other, and a great job done by our Nate/Nick. And if you go to Instagram, at ESPN Mike and Mike, he's got videos and all kinds of exclusive pictures from our Friday night and all the NBA All-Star Weekend stuff that you're not going to see anywhere. Again, go follow us on Instagram. We have a new social guy who's doing a terrific job.
Yes, he is.
And I must say, I had as much fun coaching that game. I wanted to win, obviously, and I was disappointed that we lost. You guys beat us fair and square. It was a good game. And it really was a good game. It was close right to the end.
Yeah.
I had as much fun coaching that game as I have had doing anything in a really long time.
I mean, I even texted you the next day, saying have fun Saturday night. But how much fun? Well, way more fun than playing because we stink. as players. So this was a lot of fun. And I know I didn't get to talk to a lot of the celebs on your team, but my team, everybody was great.
Yes, me
too. They
too.
were unbelievably nice. Spike Lee, John McEnroe. Spike Lee walks in the locker room. And I'm deferring everything to Spike Lee. I'm like, all right, Spike, here's the team. Here you go. Here's the roster. You're like, I don't know, Golick. You're the head coach. You do it. I'm like, are you kidding me? But he was great during the game. McEnroe was great. All the players were. Kevin Hart was on top of his game from the entertainment value of it. He was fantastic. Complete joke that he won the MVP, as I tried to say that night. Should have been Skylar Diggins or Robert Parra, the owner of the Memphis Grizzlies. But it was a lot of fun. Really, really was.
It was. And thanks to everybody who watched and everybody who was there. The place was full.
Yeah,
the Garden was full. And so it was a great experience. So for us, Friday night was a lot of fun. Again, all the stuff is up there on Instagram if you're interested in seeing it.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
I now understand why Greg Popovich gets as aggravated as he does during these interviews. I haven't set my offense. I haven't set my defense. I haven't subbed anybody in there. I feel like I'm really losing out on a lot of valuable coaching time here. I apologize to Cassidy for my outburst during our interview.
You did that, and you were done in that interview. Cassidy Hubbard, the nice, wants to talk to us after the first quarter. To the both of us, and here you are giving her that answer.
I'm trying to coach a basketball game here, Mike.
There's where you and I were different. You were all uptight in your coat and tie. You looked nice. I was a little more relaxed. I still had the outfit on. I did the show in the morning. And you know what I had confidence in when I was over doing the interview with Cassidy?
Yeah.
My assistant coaches, Spike Lee and John McEnroe. They picked up the slack. I had confidence in them, so I wasn't missing anything. You obviously lack confidence in Carmelo Anthony and Isaiah Austin.
Well, first of all, Carmelo Anthony was too busy signing autographs to be worrying about setting our defense.
I actually handed the because I had the roster because again it was Spike who said no, Golick, you do it. I actually handed him the roster.
I need to mention that we are off to a clean start, which is brought to you by Nivea Men Sensitive Shaving, Face Care, and Body Wash products. We thank them for their support. And yeah, so it was a fun night. For people who are asking why I was wearing a suit, two reasons. One, I was doing an interview. I went to do the Meredith Vieira show and then went directly to the Garden from there.
Right.
So I didn't feel like bringing multiple outfits with me. I thought maybe I'd change into some sort of sweatsuit when I got there. But when because they provided us with some stuff if we wanted to wear it. But then when we got there and I walked out onto the court in the suit, I sort of felt kind of good. Like I felt like, hey, I'm coaching a game at the Garden. This will never happen again. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. My idol, Hubie Brown. Look, I'm a kid who grew up going to games in that building. When I was a kid in the early 80s, you could buy a ticket to sit in what used to be called the upstairs, the Blue Heaven, the blue seats, which no longer exist. But you could buy a ticket for $6. And then if you could prove that you went to school of any sort, a school ID of any sort, it was 50% off. So for $3, my friends and I would go buy tickets up there.
Now,
and at the end of the first quarter, you could go sit wherever you wanted. Yeah. So at the end of the first quarter, we would go down. We were sitting not quite where Spike Lee is now, but I'm talking about best seats in the house for $3. And I would always sit right behind the Nick bench, and I would listen to Hubie Brown coach. That's why I love Hubie Brown to this day. And I would listen to him in the huddles and all that kind of stuff, and I loved it. So he's always been sort of my idol in that regard. So I figured, what the heck? I'm coaching a game in the Garden. I'm going to wear the suit.
You're a New York kid who got to coach a game in the Garden, got to run the bases in Old Yankee Stadium. I mean, you got to do some of those fun things a New York kid got to do.
It was great.
Yeah. So you had the suit on, and nobody tweeted me and asked Golick, why aren't you in a suit because they'd know better.
No one was surprised by your attire.
Chance I would put one on.
And your team won fair and square.
It was a fun game.
It was a fun. I hope people enjoyed it. I didn't see it on TV, obviously, because we were doing it. I know that it was on ESPN. I really hope people enjoyed watching it because it was really fun to be a part of.
Would you have given Kevin Hart the MVP, though? His fourth? Come on.
Listen, it's a popularity contest. The fans are voting for this stuff. So, yes, actually, it was a great moment. When it was over, if you didn't see it, Golick tried to wrestle away the MVP trophy from Kevin Hart.
This is a Kanye moment. You don't get this.
It's Black History Month, Mike. Let this happen.
Let this happen.
Dude is just so
I really
funny.
enjoyed Kevin. He was on my team.
So funny.
He was really funny.
Such a good dude.
Michael Rappaport got a technical foul. The score was 4-2.
4-2.
He got a
technical foul.
And by the way, I saw Jesse Williams on Saturday night at the game For those who are wondering, the ridiculously handsome star of Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
And he told me he tore his ACL, his MCL, and his meniscus.
Coming later in the game, he made a move across the paint, and he said he did a little jump stop, and he said he heard 3 pops. And
it was right in front of me. I was standing 5 feet away.
Listen, anybody who's been down that road a little bit, you saw when I saw him land, I was praying he would reach for his ankle and say he just turned his ankle. When I saw him reach for his knee, I said, wow. That's going to be tough. And talk to him after, his brother, who is a soccer player, just got done rehabbing an ACL. So I said, well, at least you have someone that can kind of show you the way there. It's a shame. In a fun game like that was certainly a shame that happened. But other than that, it was the celebrities were all great. They were very nice. Some played really hard. Others had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun. And we enjoyed it much more coaching than playing.
Well, yes. Sure. I mean, listen, as badly, I don't know how well I coached, but I coached way better than I played. That's for sure. Okay. Let's get to a story that I can't make up my mind how big a deal it is. I saw it on Pro Football Talk, but it's from an interview in the New York Times. In said interview, Julian Edelman, who many people think could have been the MVP of the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but let's go back. Remember, in the Super Bowl, he got hit on one play by Cam Chancellor.
He did.
And it was pretty evident watching on TV that Julian Edelman didn't know where he was. Mm-hmm. For at least a second there, he didn't know where he was. He didn't know what state he was in. He didn't know what sport he was playing.
Well, all right. You're going a little far.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
he got hit hard, and he seemed to be a little wobbly.
Okay. All right.
Then you describe it, Dave. So I don't want to overstate it. You describe it.
Yeah.
He looked like he got his bell rung.
It looked like he got his bell rung, but he kept moving, kept going. So you kind of were, did he, didn't he, which brings to me a little bit of a gray area on what do you do.
Let's put it this way. He got hit and reacted in a way that 10 years ago you would have paid no attention to.
Nothing.
And now in the NFL, you pay immediate attention to. We are trained to notice that now. Our eyes all go to it immediately. So everyone wanted to know, did he have a concussion? Did he go through the protocol? Was he tested? All of this. He was, according to Pro Football Talk, evasive on the topic in the New York Times, citing the Patriots' policy against discussing injury. Here is the Q&A. Question, do you think Cam Chancellor should have been penalized for that hit? Answer, I don't have an opinion on that. He's doing his job. Whether it was or wasn't a penalty, that's for the refs to decide. Question, did you get a concussion on that play? Answer, due to our team policy, I can't discuss that. Question, you stumbled after that play, but you stayed in the game. Does that mean you were not injured? Answer, next question. Question, were you tested for a concussion? Answer, I went through all the protocols. And I'm having, pardon me, trouble with my computer now. It literally is locking up on me, so it will not go down here, and let me read the rest of it.
He basically, while you're trying to get that to work, he went through that play, and I wondered as well. But he kind of kept moving. He got hit. He kept going on the play, and he kept moving. And you kind of wondered. He stayed in for the rest of that series. After that series, on the sideline, that's when he went through the concussion protocol after that. And my wife and I, again, my wife working with the NFL and part of the heads-up program and the whole safety from, obviously, the NFL all the way on down to the grassroots to the Pop Warner leagues and the youth leagues to try and, stem that as much as you can. You're not going to cure it, stop it all, but be smarter about it. That was the question. Should he have come out of the game at that point? Because while you kind of looked and said, he kind of kept moving and kept doing his thing, to which I brought up the question. I do not know the answer to this. Is there an independent person on a sideline doctor who says, get him off the field now? Is there that? I don't know if there is. I know independent people check them. Or should somebody from that team, the team doctor, whoever, or coach, somebody said, he looks wobbly, get him off the field? Those are the questions coming out of this.
Yeah. So I finally got my computer working, so we'll take a short break here, and then I will explain in a moment what some of the questions that this raises are and whether they are significant or not. I'll let you decide whether they are significant or not. We'll do that as we continue on this President's Day. Thanks for spending your Monday with us on Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Had a fun weekend. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Brian Windhorst will wrap it up for us in about 10 minutes on the Subway First Take Hotline and take us through what we might see this week with the NBA trade deadline looming on the horizon. We also pick a daily star brought to you by American Express. Go to youtube.com/American Express now to see the All-Star journeys behind the All-Star moves, and I think our daily star has to be Zach LaVine, who, again, in my opinion, did single-handedly resuscitate the dunk contest because not only did he make this week's fun to watch, or this year's amazingly fun to watch, but he also, I think, was so good that he makes it interesting next year. You want to see if he can bring anything different, assuming he does it again.
Right.
If he can bring anything different to the table, and if anyone can challenge him next year. I think he really brought a lot of juice back to something that desperately needed it.
No doubt about it. Each year, the talk was, A, we're not getting the stars in this, and B, is it time to retire this event and think of something else? And then Zach LaVine, and with 4 dunks, basically said, no, we still have, every now and then, we're going to get a guy you may not know much about, but he's going to do spectacular dunks that are going to make you still be wowed enough to say, okay, this is an event worth having. He had no competition in this, and that will be the key. Will he want to come back next year and think, can I outdo what I even did? And who will want to go against him? Because he was so far and away above everybody else in this competition that is a legitimate question for. It does seem like that's part of the process with these guys is they don't want to lose and maybe look bad if they lose, is who's going to want to come challenge this kid. And kid, I mean, he's 19.
19 years old. Twitter reaction through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed about everything. Kevin, Zach LaVine is 19 years old. The only person who might challenge him is fellow 19-year-old Andrew Wiggins, so we'll see. Art tweets at us, Wiggins almost fainted watching a pre-dunk contest dunk that Zach admitted he didn't even try, so part 2 is upcoming. Mark, LaVine was great, but what makes a great dunk contest is competition.
Right,
Need 3 or 4 guys in it like him.
See, that would have been nice because all you were doing at one point was just waiting for him. The other guys turned out to be, unfortunately, a little bit of filler while you were waiting for LaVine and saying, could he outdo that last dunk? So I agree with that. If you can get a couple, 2, 3 guys where you have a heck of a competition going, that would certainly add to it.
Tanny Bogus tweets us, are you protecting Kevin Hart's ego by not mentioning Monet? Monet Davis did make that spin move on Kevin. I'll say quickly on both of them. Kevin, we've gotten to know over the years. Yeah. He has the best attitude about that game, whether he's the MVP or not.
I know. Absolutely.
He really is there to have fun. At halftime, he was on my team. At halftime in the locker room, he was literally lying on the ground, just resting, lying on the ground, and just making everybody laugh. He was just hilarious.
He's a great guy who gets that game. He's a good player. He can play ball, but he can also have fun as well. And I had Monet Davis, the 13-year-old pitcher from Little League World Series, but she's an 8th grader who is starting on the varsity squad of the high school she's going to go to. And we put her on Kevin Hart to have fun in the beginning, and they had a nice matchup. And she drove left and then spun back the other way and hit a layup on him that was immediately all over Vines and tweets and YouTube everywhere.
A sweet little girl, too.
Very nice.
I mean, she's very nice, very friendly to everybody. Quiet.
Certainly quiet, but she's 13, there's a ton of celebrities around.
I thought, considering that, she handles herself ridiculously well.
Completely agree.
She's a 13-year-old girl surrounded by huge stars and screaming people and everything else. So I thought she handled herself beautifully. And then here's There's always got to be someone. Stop hyping. LaVine had one great dunk the whole night. We already forgot about him. Well, maybe you did, but I disagree. I thought he was sensational.
You knew that would happen.
I thought it was up there with the best performances.
It was excellent
in the slam dunk contest we've seen in a while. The best, I think if I had to pick the best slam dunk contest performance ever, I think I'd have to go Vince Carter.
Vince Carter, yeah.
It would have to be.
The thing about, and somebody did mention it about the two, because you start to, listen, they were great dunks by Zach LaVine, without question. But do we rate it higher because we have been so disappointed by the dunk contest that he so well surpassed a lot of our thoughts about it? Or because, as someone was saying about Vince Carter, Vince's dunks were much different, each one. Zach's, while they were spectacular, some would say they were kind of the same, behind the back or between the legs. Listen to what we're saying. I mean, dude's head's
his athleticism is
almost
insane.
Hitting the rim.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
He can jump out of the gym.
But for now, those at the top of their game in the dunk contest, the thought is Vince Carter because of the different array of dunks he had. And I'm with you. I think it would be Vince Carter.
I thought Dominique Wilkins at his heyday was an unbelievable dunker. I always liked it when the little guys dunked just because they're doing it. So when Spud Webb and Nate Robinson were dunking, just because of their size, I mean, they're like Kevin Hart's size, and they're winning slam dunk contests. Yeah. So I enjoy those myself. it's not the same experience as watching the bigger guys dunk, but one way or another, I thought he was legitimately that good. All right, let me get back to the Edelman stuff. So again, for those of you just joining us, because I now have my computer about me again, in an interview, a Q&A with the New York Times, Julian Edelman was evasive in talking about whether he had a concussion in the Super Bowl. We all saw the big hit that he took from Cam Chancellor. Yes. He certainly looked like he got a little wobbly after that. He wound up catching 3 more passes, including the game-winning touchdown after that play. Now, Q&A. Do you think Cam Chancellor should have been penalized? Answer, I don't have an opinion on that. He's doing his job. Question, did you get a concussion on that play? Answer, due to our team policy, I can't discuss that. Question, you stumbled after that play, but you stayed in the game. Does that mean you were not injured? Answer, next question. Question, were you tested for a concussion? Answer, I went through all the protocols. Now, I'm reading this again off ProFootballTalk.com. Here's what they go on to ask. If Edelman went through all the protocols and was cleared to return, why is he refusing to say so? Bill Belichick doesn't like players to talk about injuries because he doesn't want the next team to gain an advantage. But in this case, there was no next team because the season was over. And if Edelman was cleared through the proper channels, then there was no injury. The fact that Edelman won't talk suggests there's something to hide, which suggests the NFL's concussion protocols failed to properly protect Edelman in the Super Bowl.
That's a reach, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the point is...
Just because he's not answering the question, now we assume concussed?
Well, the question is...
saying?
Well, yes. So the question is, if he went through the protocols and was found not to have a concussion, why can't he say so?
Because, I don't know, because he's with the Patriots. How many straight answers do you get from Patriot players? We've had a number of them on the show. You know what? I put more into that, quite honestly. Do I think he got stung? Do I think he got his bell rocked a little bit? Yes, I do. But there's a line of, as I talked about this a lot with my wife, as I said, because of the Heads Up program, what she's involved with. Where do you go there? There is definitely a line there of, as you mentioned, 3 catches in the game winner after that. After that series, he stayed in for the rest of that series. After that series, he went through the protocol, and he passed all the protocol, and he went back in the game. So to jump to that and say because he didn't answer the question that he must have been concussed or massively concussed and the system is failing, I think it's a bit of a reach.
I'm not saying he must have been. I'm saying he may have been. I'm asking the question.
He may have been.
So my point is, on the very biggest day, this is where this becomes extremely dicey, right? This is the Super Bowl.
Yes.
This isn't the second quarter of a game in October. This is the Super Bowl. Well, so yes, it's the biggest stage.
Biggest stage.
But more importantly, everyone is all in favor of making sure guys don't suffer head trauma and all that kind of stuff. So in the second quarter of a game in October, if a guy looks like he's got his bell rung, get him out of there, take his helmet away. This is the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So I think almost all football people, and by that I don't mean Roger Goodell office football people.
Right.
I mean coaches, players, all that kind of stuff are going to say, leave him out there. It's the Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? Because, this is the mentality of the sport in the first place. But I guess my question or the point I'm trying to make is, if in the second quarter of a game in October, you would have taken him out at that point to make sure everything is okay, don't you have to do the same thing in the Super Bowl?
I don't know if you would have. I don't know if you would have. Listen, I saw the play. I've seen guys get up where they look like Batman, where your first initial explanation was more of other guys like that. Your first initial explanation was not what happened with Julian Edelman as far as looking punch drunk. He didn't. There were guys I saw that did, where you immediately know, get that guy off the field. He got hit. He kept running. He got up. He looked a little wobbly, but not enough to where I said, whoa, okay, he has no clue where he's at. Did he get stung on that play? Yeah, he got stung on that play. I can't sit here and say in the second game of the season I'd have taken him out at that point if he looked like that. He finished that series with no issue. He went to the sideline. Then you check him out like you should. You check him out there. If you feel there's an issue, you check him out, which they did. He passed that, and he went back on the field, 3 more catches, game-winning touchdown. I don't have a problem with the way it went at all. There's and that's the line we're at right now. There's safety. There's the line of how quick do you pull someone as opposed to leaving them in the game. This was a great test of that. And I think how a player reacts, because the one thing when you get hit somewhere, you can kind of hide it, okay? If you get stung bad in the head, your functions kind of stop.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really hide it. You can't, if I hurt my knee, say I hurt my elbow just because I don't want them to know they hurt my knee. You can fake it depending on how severe an injury is. But with a head, if you get ahead enough, you can't. You're going to wobble. You're going to stumble just enough to say, okay, no. I didn't see it in that play. Did I see him stumble a bit? Did I see him continue to run after the hit? Yes, I did. So I didn't, to me, now I'm sure everybody's going to say because you're a football player and you think that's the way it should be played, there's part of me that says yes, but there's also part of me that understands it is different now. It's a little different. But there's our line. Is it that much different where if you see a guy stumble just a little bit, even though he kept running on that play, do you immediately yank him off the field, take his helmet and sit him down and go through everything? So to me, you're still trying to find that line, and that was a great definition, I think, of that line, of where it is. Because for the most part, you can tell when you need to bring a guy off the field when he got hit in the head.
It's a question I know a lot of people were asking after the Super Bowl, and there were a ton of jokes that were going. Jokes. I like to use the word jokes, but you saw people on Instagram, on Twitter, saying, Julian Edelman should have been the MVP, but he wouldn't have remembered it even if he had, kind of thing, because he did. He certainly looked to me like he got rocked on the play. And look, again, if you've watched football longer than the last 3 years, then you know that used to happen in every game at least once. You'd see a guy get rocked. He'd be kind of wobbly. He'd kind of make his way back to the huddle slowly. Maybe he'd come out for a play. Right. And then he's back in the game. And that's the way the game of football had always been played. Right. It isn't the way it's supposed to be played now. That's the difference. And so that's the question. So there it is on the biggest possible stage. Exactly. And then when they ask him the question, it seems very simple. If he didn't have a concussion, to just say, no, I didn't have a concussion. Again, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I read the story over the weekend, and I thought to myself, how big a deal is this? Mm-hmm. Because the head injury stuff is such a hot-button topic, because it is the Super Bowl, right. How big a deal are people going to make out of this? Maybe the answer is not a big deal at all.
No, again, I think people were. I
wouldn't have taken him out of the game. Right. If there's any option, I'm not taking him out of the game in the Super Bowl, and that might sound hypocritical, but this is the most important game in the world.
But then are we then saying there's something wrong with the protocol? I mean, because he went out.
I'm asking the question.
No, I'm not talking about you. But those that are saying he played with a concussion, well, again, after that series, he went through the protocol. And remember, the protocol involved in that is an independent doctor, not a team doctor when we talk about them getting paid by the team. So he went through that and was allowed to go back in the game. So, I mean, unless you now want to question the protocol, the Patriots and or the protocol on letting them back in the game, he went through it. It was just a matter he stayed on the field for a couple of more plays after that initial hit.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Not a lot of surprise with the reporting over the weekend that Peyton Manning has told the Denver Broncos that pending the outcome of a physical, which is, by the way, part of his deal, he has to pass the physical, and he said, from what I'm told, he wanted it in there. He didn't want to take their money if he wasn't healthy enough to play, but provided that he passes the physical, that he does plan to come back and play another year. Let's talk to a guy who knows a little something about playing with a legendary, iconic quarterback at the end of his career and winning championships with him. Mm-hmm. That one was John Elway, and this is Shannon Sharpe with us, the Hall of Famer on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, guys. I just want to say, I know we're not going to talk about it, but I disagree with both of you guys on Carmelo.
You do?
We can talk about it as much as you want. What? Tell me.
Because the Knicks are paying him $25 million. If he wins that game last night, they get $50,000. If he's healthy enough to play those kind of minutes in an All-Star game, I do agree with you, Golick, is that I thought what he would do, the tip would go up, some team would score, he would foul someone, wave to the crowd, go sit on the bench. It just doesn't look right for a guy that says, I'm injured, I'm thinking about shutting it down, and then you play as many, if not more minutes, than Russell Westbrook, who won the MVP. That just gives a bad look. It makes him look bad, and it makes the Knicks organization look bad.
He had the third most minutes last night of anybody. Hold
on, Mike. He said there's a report. Now, I don't know if he said it or how it got out. I'm seriously thinking about shutting it down after the All-Star game. And you missed the games leading up to the All-Star game, but you played the third most minutes in the All-Star game. What am I missing here? Let me ask you a question, Golden. Mm-hmm. If Peyton Manning said, I had a hurt quad, but he goes to play in the Pro Bowl, what would have happened, Golet?
Yeah, he would have took. Now, the one thing people would say, and you tell me this, the difference of you, that one of those games is nothing like a real game. So are you in danger of hurting yourself more? You know, the Pro Bowl is like a 7-on-7, and the basketball All-Star game is basically like a 3-point shooting or a dunk fest. So I get it from the minute situation, but are you really putting yourself in harm's way in one of those games?
It is not. In basketball, it's not the amount of minutes, a free jump here. I mean, you jump and somebody, you shooting a shot and you land on someone's ankle. Or, you trying to save a ball and something happens. The freakish incident can happen when you least expect it. I'm just saying, and I'm just, doing hypotheticals here. It just didn't look right. For a guy making $25 million, and the reports are he's possibly thinking about shutting it down, and then all of a sudden he plays so many minutes in the All-Star game. It looks bad. It mainly looks bad on Carmelo because you missed so many games leading up to the All-Star game. You've been in and out of the lineup the entire season, and now you play all these minutes in the All-Star. I get it's in your building that you play your home games. I get it's in front of your home crowd. But I was thinking Carmelo, the tip's going to go up. They'll probably give him an opportunity to score the first basket. If he fouls someone, waves to the crowd, I'm done.
I thought that's the one thing we absolutely all agree on. We thought the same thing. I thought it would be a couple of minutes, wave to the crowd. I'm the host. Thanks everybody for showing up, and then we'll go hang out and have a good time at the after party. But so that situation will continue.
I would actually say that too. The part I would agree with Shannon on, Shannon, that I would agree with you on is it doesn't look right.
It doesn't.
It just sounds right. What we were analyzing was whether there was any real jeopardy involved there, and would you agree, Shannon, that you have to believe that the doctors have told Carmelo that he wasn't putting himself in any real jeopardy, and that whatever it is, however long it's going to take him to recover from whatever it is he's about to do, he's going to be ready in time for whatever they need him for. Don't you think they must have figured that out ahead of time?
They probably did, agree, but you still got to realize basketball is still running and jumping. And what are you doing on that knee? It's not like he's walking up and down the court. It's not like he's not jumping. I mean, if he couldn't hurt it any more than what he's doing, I mean, you've seen the Knicks play this year. How bad could he hurt it in a real game?
Yeah. That's a point well taken. Mike and Shannon Sharpe. Quickly, while we're on the basketball, what did you think? I assume you saw it. What did you think of Zach LaVine?
I was impressed. I was impressed with the dunk contest. It made me a believer again. The only problem that I have with guys, if a guy missed the first dunk, he can no longer get a 50. So you can't say a guy's perfect. He missed his first, saying a guy you don't get to go to the free throw line and hit 10 out of 12 and they say, well, he was perfect. Mm-hmm. No, it's not. He missed two. So if you miss your first attempt, you can no longer, the best you could possibly get is probably 49.
You know what? I completely agree, because at the end of the first round of that, it wound up not making any difference. But both Oladipo and LaVine both had 50, and I was saying at the same time, you're 100% right. You cannot possibly give them the same score when one guy made his first dunk and the other guy needed 3 chances to make it. So I think, you know what? This morning we are very much in line with Shannon. Shannon, can you hang on? Because we haven't even gotten to the stuff we wanted to talk to you about. We got to take a quick break. All right, let's put Shannon Sharpe on hold. We'll come back. It should be noted, you can follow Shannon Sharpe on Twitter, and you should, at Shannon Sharpe. He frequently disagrees with us.
Well, he disagrees more with you. You and I disagree a lot, and so Shannon normally agrees with me and disagrees with you.
One way or another, he is frequently voicing that disagreement on Twitter. It's much more fun to have him voicing it here live with us. We'll get to his perspective on some of the big football headlines of the day as we continue live next on Mike and Mike. We're in the middle of a conversation with our buddy Shannon Sharpe, the Hall of Famer, who we haven't even gotten to what we wanted to get to yet, and that is with Peyton Manning coming back. Shannon, there's a part of me just as a sports fan that is extremely selfish, and that is when I see the all-time greats and you start to see them, they appear to have passed the tipping point and they're no longer what they were. There's always a part of me that wants them to retire. I want to see them go out on top. I want to see David Robinson win a championship in his last game and things like that. Now, you were a part of something like that with John Elway at a time when a lot of people thought he was past his prime. You and the rest of that Bronco team won a couple of championships, and he was able to sail off into the sunset with that. So do you think Peyton Manning, now that he's told the Broncos he wants to come back, can do the same thing John Elway did a generation ago?
I do, but you know, and go, you can attest to this. To win a championship, a lot of things really have to go right. If you remember John's last year, he pulled his hamstring in week 2, and he missed 4 weeks, and so we inserted Buddy Brister. So, you know, and that could have lingered on. Terrell had a magic season rushing for over 2,000 yards. And our defense, they didn't get a whole lot of credit because we had the big names on our side of the football. John, Hall of Famer, TD was going to be the MVP. He was 2-time Pro Bowl. Myself was an All-Pro and a Pro Bowl player. We had Ed and Rod. And so the defense didn't get a whole lot of credit, but our defense was better than a lot of people thought they were, especially once we got the lead and took the run out of the equation. The thing with Peyton, and I texted him after they lost the game, I said, the one thing you never want to do is making a decision after an emotional loss or emotional win. Get away from the game. Because when you're dealing with a guy like a Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or these great, great quarterbacks, it's not playing the game. That's easy for them. What it takes to go out and play the game at the level that they're accustomed to. The OTAs, the mini camps, the training camps, the time that you put in, not only in the meeting room with your quarterback and your offensive coordinator, the 3 to 4 hours that you spend at home going over the game tape. Do you still want to do that, or do you want to give up the selfishness and all of a sudden says, okay, babe, you've taken a back seat to me. If you have a wife or a significant other, whatever it is. Babe, you've taken a back seat to me for 18 years. The kids have basically had a mom and a dad, and you've been it. It's time for me to come home, and I'm going to be a family man. And those are the questions. Those are the tough questions. Because I really felt John could have come back and played because I felt he was physically, he could have done it. But I don't think he wanted to do the meetings, the OTAs, and all that other stuff. And that's what really got me, guys. What made me walk away? If Mike would have told me, said, Shannon, you can practice once a day in training camp, and you don't ever have to do meetings, even though CBS had a job on the table, I would have come back. I just couldn't do the meetings anymore. I had heard two-jet flanker drive, and I had bingo pick, and I had heard all that razor. You know, I'd heard it so much. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so you can imagine if me and what the quarterback has to know is tenfold. That's the question that I have. Does he want to do that? And it seems like he does.
Completely agree with that. I've always thought you needed some time in the off season to decompress before you make that decision. So I was going to ask you, it sounds like did you make your decision in the off season, or was it during a season when you kind of thought in your mind, you know, this may be it for me, or was it all the way into the off season?
No, I had every intent and purposes of coming back. I always did it the same way. I would take a month off. So I would take, back then, you know, my season ended. We ended in the wild card game against the Colts. I took a month off, and I started back training, started back lifting, started back running, started the process all over again. I was gearing my mind up. I had already talked to Mike and told Mike, hey, I'm coming back. And he told me, hey, don't worry about the first mini camp. We'll talk about June when that arrives. And all of a sudden, you know, Marvin called me and asked me, would I be interested? And maybe doing something else. I'm like, Marvin, I mean, what do you mean doing something else? You got another job or something? And he's like, well, you know, just think about it. Do you want to do something else? So a couple of days go by, he says, well, CBS wants you to come to New York and meet with their brass. I said, okay. So I called Mike. I said, Mike, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, maybe, you know, doing TV. I said, if you can tell me, if you can promise me, I wouldn't have to do but one day in practice, which I was already doing, continue that, and I wouldn't have to go to any meetings in training camp or during the season. I wouldn't even take this meeting. But once he couldn't promise me that, because I get it, Mike, because you don't want to give the impression that, okay, Shannon in his 15th year, he doesn't have to do anything. So I got that part of it. But for the first time in my life, I thought about doing something else other than football. And once I took that meeting, he could have told me all I had to do was show up for the games. It was over. Once I met with CBS, I told Marvin, I said, Marvin, I really need to make this happen. And I continued to train. And then 2 days later, they called and said, okay, we want to do the deal. And that was it for me.
Mike and Shannon Sharpe, who's always good enough to jump on here. And again, I can follow him on Twitter at Shannon Sharpe. While I have you, a couple of very quick questions, because the Seahawks are working on getting Russell Wilson's deal done, and that's all well and good. But then there's all this talk about the future of Marshawn Lynch, and I've been saying for years I think he's the most important player on that team. In your view, do you think that they need to have Marshawn Lynch back one way or another in order to make another run to a Super Bowl next year?
I think you saw the Super Bowl. I don't really need to tell you what he means to that team and his intricate personalities and how he doesn't talk to the media. He's it. He is the table setter. He is the heartbeat of that. He is the heartbeat of that football team, not just the offense. Because if you look, when he starts running the football, look at Cam Chancellor, look at Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman run on the field and slap at him. You don't see that with any other offensive player like you see it with Marshawn Lynch. He is the guy. And when he look, and this is not to take anything away from Russell Wilson, he's going to make $100 million. But without him, Russell Wilson's a different quarterback. I don't think without Marshawn Lynch at this current juncture, I wouldn't have Russell in my top 12, top 15 quarterbacks.
It might be one of the things that we get a chance to find out next year.
We know Russell.
I know you got to go. I'm going to, and you all remember this name, Robert Edwards. Remember the flag football game on the beach?
Yep.
You remember what he did to him? It's just a flag football game. They're playing on the beach. They're just playing flag. Remember what it did to his career?
Yeah.
Yeah, it blows me out.
Yeah.
I was right there. I remember seeing that happen.
And so that's, I guess, the kind of thing that could have happened to Carmelo. Shannon, it's always our pleasure. Thanks for jumping in. Enjoy. We'll see you soon. Stay warm,
Shannon.
wherever you are.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on. Have a good one.
The best of Mike and Mike.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Michele Roberts, is with us on Mike and Mike on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Good morning, Michele. How are you today?
I'm great, guys. How are you all?
Good. We are well. And the first question, of course, as everyone is asking, what did you think of Zach LaVine the other night, and where did that rank among the greatest dunk contest performances of all time?
I got to tell you, I've seen a lot, and that kid was spectacular. He made the night for me. It was great.
He made the night for everybody.
Sure did.
Here's the other thing I'd be curious to ask you before we get into any of the specific stuff. You and Adam Silver both come into your roles at relatively close to the same time after there had been long-standing predecessors in place. And the same thing happened in the NFL some years ago. And we see now that there has developed between the commissioner and the Players Association in the NFL this extraordinarily adversarial relationship. So I'm just curious how that feeling out process works. You take over in the role, you're new to the role, he's new to the role. Just take us a little bit inside, to whatever degree you can, how that feeling out process of developing a relationship works.
Well, it's without talking out of school, I met with Adam shortly after I got the position. He was congratulatory, as I would have expected. And the good news, I guess, is that I've not yet had a conversation with him where I thought that the inevitable adversarial relationship is going to develop into one of tension and inability to sit in the same room, right? He's grown up, I'm grown up, and so thus far so good. It took me some time and I asked him to give me time to spend time with the guys and figure out exactly what people had on their minds, what the players' needs were, and that at some point I would be able to come down and have a more substantive conversation with him. And so we are approaching that point, but I can report that from so far we've been able to be more than civil to each other. I think we get along quite well.
So you mentioned players' needs. Now, I'm sure when you got this job, you had your idea of things and areas you wanted to look at, and certainly your players who speak to you have their thoughts as well. So putting those all together, what were the couple of issues that you came into this job saying, okay, these are things that need to be addressed?
People have presumed that I've come into the job with the hope of reinventing the wheel. I'm not so naive. But I did think that there were some things that needed to be given a closer look. I was concerned about what I viewed to be a trend towards increasing the age limit for when you could come into the game. As a fan, I certainly did not think it was a great idea to insist that players play at least a year of college or be over 18 to come in. And I was certainly, on a personal level, disturbed about what, again, I saw as a trend suggesting that age limit would be increased further. So I've had discussions with the players about that. And as you know, the union took the position previously that it would oppose any attempts to increase the age limit. I've always been a little bit concerned about some of the limitations on salaries. The rookie scale is one that I know has been the subject of huge debate over years. But it does disturb me that a player, someone like LeBron, would essentially have to wait 4 or 5, maybe 6 years to, in my view, be paid what he was contributing to the game. So those are the kinds of issues that I was concerned about, and as it turns out, the players on some levels are concerned about as well.
Michele Roberts is executive director of the NBA Players Association. The thing that I find sort of a conundrum, and I wonder if you have a solution to it, is we exist in a situation now where for a star player, for the best players in the league, to get paid the maximum amount of money that they are allowed to, they are browbeaten and frowned upon. They are basically told they're not good team guys and they don't care about winning if they take as much money as they are allowed by the rules to take. And while I'm not smart enough to figure out a way around that, it does strike me as something that is a problem. What would be a solution to that situation, to where a guy like Kobe Bryant isn't being called a bad team guy because he took a bunch of money?
I struggle with this every day because I don't hear people complaining about, movie stars making the kind of money that they do. I mean, if you compare the money that, say, someone like a Brad Pitt makes compared to someone like a Kobe Bryant or LeBron James, no one complains about any other profession except basketball players or athletes in general. And so, I don't know if I will never say that the solution should be that players should take less money than they're worth. I'll never go down that road. But it may be that we need to change the narrative a little bit and get people to understand that it doesn't make sense to somehow exclude from what is absolutely done all over this place, all over this country, basketball players from being able to make the kind of money that they deserve. So it is a conundrum, and it's one that maybe I'm not smart enough to solve either.
Mike and Mike, Michele Roberts is with us. Another thing that the commissioner's talked a lot about is restructuring the schedule. We're seeing a little bit of that right now because the players, he said he had heard from the players, they wanted a longer All-Star break, particularly those that participate in the All-Star game. So we're seeing a little longer break, but as a consequence of that, we're getting more games jammed in. You can feel it. Just as a fan, you can feel it. More games jammed in during the rest of the season, more 4 games in 5 nights kind of thing. What are you hearing from your players about the scheduling?
Exactly what you said. And the back-to-backs are ridiculous. Playing 4 or 5 games, back-to-back is just insane, and it's also dangerous. I mean, I don't know. I can't say that I've got the data to prove it, but my guess is that we are at risk in terms of more injuries. I was delighted that the commissioner said that he was prepared to have some conversation about that, because I think this is got to be a place where we can find some common ground. It is in no one's best interest to have these guys risk injury and or otherwise be too tired to frankly play a game that's worth seeing. So it's something that I think we can all hold hands around the table and try to resolve, because it's otherwise going to harm the game.
Well, another issue that came up in my sport of football during the Super Bowl was Marshawn Lynch and his not wanting to talk to the media, and that became so much of a headline more than the game itself for a while. And over the weekend, one of the biggest stars in your game, Kevin Durant, talked about how he doesn't even like the media, and the only reasons he talks to them is because he's obligated to. What's your thought on that going forward? Does there seem to be a butting of the heads there, and your thought of player obligation with the media?
Well, I guess theoretically the point of talking to the media is to answer questions that fans would otherwise want to direct to the players that for obvious reasons they can't. And so I get it, and there needs to be some availability. But but we also need to balance that with just not taking anything that a player says or taking a word or two that a player says and skewing it. There's always the concern that they might be misinterpreted, or if they say something that they will suffer consequences down the road. And it's also the case that, and you guys know this, both before and after a game, these guys are trying to prepare for a game or otherwise exhausted from a game, and they have to be available. So, I think I'm not advocating, and I don't think that Kevin was advocating that there be no availability at all, but I think we need to be respectful of both their time and not use an interview as an opportunity to play gotcha.
Michele Roberts is with us. She's the executive director of the NBA Players Association. Something that Adam Silver, I feel like he almost sort of broke a dam, and I'll be very curious to see where it goes from here, was that he raised the issue of legalized gambling across the country on professional sports, on the NBA, and he said he's talked to the commissioners of other sports. And that's something that I've been fascinated by for a long time. And there isn't any secret that billions of dollars are being wagered on professional sports in this country every single year illegally. And is there a way for that to become legal? What is the, if there is one, an official position of the Players Association, or what do you hear from players about that issue?
No, there is no official position. Frankly, I have at least just begun to engage players in discussions about it. And you're right, everyone's known for years that there is a ton of money being made that's not being enjoyed, frankly, by the people who are creating the game, both the owners and the players. And so if there's a way, and I haven't talked to Silver about this either, but if there's a way to funnel what is otherwise income that should be enjoyed by the folks that are creating it, in a way that doesn't harm the game, then I frankly don't see any reason why we can't explore it. I know all of the negatives and horribles that have up to today kept gambling outside of the realm of what's appropriate in terms of sports, but let's not ignore the big elephant in the room. There's a lot of money being made, and so here again is something I think we should talk about, and I am looking forward to an opportunity to do that with Silver going forward.
And then as a final thought, we very much appreciate your time. We hope it's the first of what will be many conversations over the years. Whenever we have the commissioner of a sport on, we always ask by saying, what issue keeps you up at night? What's the one thing that wakes you up in the middle of the night that you worry about? I guess in your position, I would ask you, what's the one thing you hear the most from your players? As you've gone around and talked to your players about their concerns, what would you say would be the single biggest concern NBA players have right now?
Gee, it almost depends upon the player. What I will say is, what I've been hearing the most about recently is fatigue, the number of games, and that is from the rookie to the marquee player. Everyone says we've got to do something about this schedule. That may change next week, but that's what I've been hearing for the last few weeks from the players, and certainly during this weekend. The schedule.
So we'll see if that's the way it goes. Michele, we very much appreciate the time. Thank you. We look forward to doing it again.
Oh, me too. You guys have a great one.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.